In the interest of time, I'm going to just breeze through one example of the corporate aspect of the occupation, because as long as companies are making the kind of money they're making on war and occupation, then it's just not going to stop. And the company I want to highlight is Kellogg Brown & Root, Halliburton, and of course that means we'll talk about our dearly beloved Dick Cheney, which, you know, about a week ago there was I saw an AP story about how he had an irregular heartbeat. And I thought that story kind of missed the point. That the real story was that Dick Cheney actually had a heart-shaped object with blood in it in his chest. So I want to talk about Halliburton because this really outlines a huge component of why we are in the situation that we're in today. And this is December 2003. I want to read a page, and it's about me and my interpreter talking with people in gas lines in Baghdad, which before the occupation didn't exist. A gas line meant one car was ahead of you at the gas station, where gas was literally pennies on the liter. Now it's December 2003. We're talking about 8 months into the occupation, and the gas lines are long, 8-hour waits, 12-hour waits, sometimes people sleeping in their cars. And so we're talking to some folks there. Some of the men we spoke with in the fuel line were aware of the fact that Halliburton subsidiary KBR had just been caught by the Pentagon for grossly overcharging them by importing gas into Iraq from Kuwait at $2.65 per gallon. Iraqi concerns were able to do the job for just under $1 per gallon. Halliburton, which had Dick Cheney as its chairman and CEO from 1995 to 2000, before he relinquished his position to become vice president, was unabashedly looting the Pentagon. By this time, Cheney's old company, which he still had financial ties with and has today, had obtained billions of dollars of contracts in Iraq. No one knows exactly how much money has been contracted in total, but as of the time of this writing, Halliburton's overall contracts for log cap and oil infrastructure rebuilding have totaled approximately $20 billion in Iraq. It's well over $20 billion at this point. Total expenditures on U.S. corporations operating in Iraq on reconstruction and other services is now over $50 billion. LogCap is a logistics civil augmentation program with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is Halliburton's largest government contract. Under this contract, Halliburton is responsible for providing supplies and services to the military on a global basis. Services include construction of military housing for troops, transporting food and supplies to bases, and serving food. So as I said before, according to the DoD, there are 761 U.S. military bases around the globe. That means that Halliburton has the contract to do construction work, reconstruction work on those bases. All the semis coming in from Kuwait to Baghdad, that's all Halliburton. They're all Halliburton employees. Keep those bases stocked with food, fuel, build and maintain the electrical plants, same with the water plants, cook the food, clean, serve the food, stock the BXs, employ the BXs. All this is Halliburton. And in Iraq, that's just a little meager 54 bases where they're doing this and installations. Worldwide, that's 761 bases. So we're talking about a really, really big contract. When we talk about what Halliburton's making in Iraq, a little over $20 billion, imagine what it is worldwide. And is this by accident? You know, was there a nice legitimate bidding process? And, you know, how did this become privatized? And how did it happen that Halliburton got it? Well, Dick Cheney is a bit of a control freak. And let me line through real quick how this happened. It's worth noting that it was Dick Cheney, as Bush's father's Secretary of Defense in 1992, who spearheaded the movement to privatize most of the military civil logistics activities. Under Cheney's direction, $9 million was paid by the Pentagon to KBR to conduct a study to determine whether private companies like KBR should handle all the military civil logistics. KBR's classified study conveniently concluded that greater privatization of logistics was in the government's best interest. Shortly thereafter, on August 3, 1992, Secretary of Defense Cheney awarded the first comprehensive log cap contract to KBR. The Washington Post reported at the time, the Pentagon chose KBR to carry out the study and subsequently selected the company to implement its own plan. 3 years later, Cheney became CEO of Halliburton. To finish that out, so in 95, he's CEO of Halliburton. In 99, he says, quote, "By 2010, we will need a further 50 million barrels of oil a day. The Middle East, with 2/3 of the oil and the lowest cost, is still where the prize lies," end quote. The same year, Bush is running for the office of president. They form a committee to decide who's going to be the best running mate. Dick Cheney volunteers to lead that search for the committee and chooses himself. He's still CEO of Halliburton. Single-digit days before he's sworn in as vice president, he steps out of his CEO Halliburton position and is sworn in as vice president, and here we are. And now as we speak, there's over 600 Western corporations with contracts operating inside of Iraq. And this is what the military is being used for, simply profit. Nothing about self-defense, nothing about the Constitution, nothing about security of the United States of America. Is all about money, and the Cold War, the so-called Cold War, has been replaced with the so-called War on Terror, which is actually basically a quest for global empire and using the U.S. military to make that happen. That's what they're being used for. And of course, it goes without saying that is not what these people signed up for. And that is why today there is a vibrant and growing GI resistance movement in this country. That coupled with how these people are being treated when they come back home. Just a few things I'll throw out there. I'm almost out of time. But right now, according to the VA, and this came out in leaked documents this past spring, every month, 1,000 veterans that are technically under VA care are trying to commit suicide. Every single month. And if we include all wars, every day 18 veterans are committing suicide in this country. And when you see homeless people on the street, 1 out of every 4 homeless people on the street is a veteran of some war. And when you come home from Iraq or Afghanistan and you're waiting for help for the VA, the average wait is 6 months to see somebody. And then if you file a claim for disability and that's denied and you appeal it, then you have to wait an average of 4.5 years to hear how your appeal turns out. That's another reason why 1,000 people a month are trying to kill themselves. Under technically VA care, as those people would be. So gee, why is there a resistance movement in the U.S. military? Why is it growing? Why is it starting to get more support from the civilian population? We are at the beginning stage of that movement, but the structure and the foundation of that is really effectively being laid out. As I said to begin my talk, there are branches opening up all over the place. There are I.V.A.W. houses opening. More are slated to open in just the next few months. GI coffee houses, there's one established, another one's about to open any week now, and then 3 more in the works within the next couple of months. So it really is starting to happen, and not just I.V.A.W., but there's other veteran groups also that are quite engaged in different aspects of resistance, namely to try to get the veterans the health care that they need. So that's a quick download of some of the key points I wanted to make about what's happening in Iraq, and I'm, again, just really honored to be on this panel and offer my support to these guys, because they deserve all the support that we can give them.